Oh, hey, thanks very much, Freddie, for joining us today in this meeting. Super excited to have you on board, and trust your morning started well so far.
Yeah, good, Jim. Yep.
Awesome, cool. Hey, just for the audience, the idea of this conversation, if you like, has come on the back of a recent online seminar hosted by SPE. As you know, they're all about pulling professionals in the plastic industry together, but it was around the future of rotomolding and what's really making our industry innovative and sustainable. And what I really want to do is shine the light on what you guys have been doing at PLASTAX and your role in leading, I guess, here in New Zealand as an advocate for product recycling and stewardship. We know, and I've seen a lot about how you guys are committed to, prioritizing recyclability and your products and exploring those challenges, opportunities, etc. And really what we're trying to do here, I guess, in one way is changing the perceptions around, plastic recycling, fostering the environmental stewardship, that sort of thing. But I really want to know, and I've got some questions I want to ask you around, why it's important to plastics and how rotomolders in general can play their part.
Yeah, it's
So
good.
how about we kick off by you just introducing us to plastics and what your mission is around, recycling and stewardship.
Yeah, sure. Good, Jim. Yep. Good noble cause and happy to chat. Um, yes, well, we sort of we're a family business, as a lot of rotational molders are and start off as, and so I joined Dad in the business in 2017. Small team, very um, similar to a lot of roto molders, I would have thought. Um, Contract molding and a range of products from, you know, tanks and agricultural equipment and so on and so forth. And we had our own range of bins at that stage as well. Um, and I guess I came in with some fresh eyes to the business. And early on, it was a Wasteman's seminar, Wasteman's Association, that really opened my eyes to product stewardship and the role that businesses need to play in it, and in particular in the plastics industry. So that's sort of how it came about, and I guess there was a real fundamental recycling story already going on at PLASTAX without any of my input. The the um, the waste offcuts were being taken away for recycling already, and so were the soft plastics, and that was being done for just commercial purposes. Less being collected, less cost to the business, and that was making commercial sense at that stage for Dad for 15
Yep.
years with the team. So it wasn't like it's completely foreign. It was just probably the change of outlook or a way of embracing it from a market-facing perspective to really, put some impetus behind it and work out how we could start designing it in early at the start of a product.
Awesome. It's such a cool story. I love it how you've picked up the ball and run with it. I guess from here, around prioritizing recyclability in your products and that sort of thing. What really drives that now in terms of a commitment in your company? What drives that commitment to just keep recycling and prioritizing recycling?
Yeah, that's good. So I guess firstly off the bat, I probably saw it not really as optional, and I think that's probably just the reality of the world we live in today, is that to thrive and succeed,
Mm.
product stewardship is a big part of corporate social responsibility,
Mm.
and I think it's just incumbent upon us to actually embrace that. And I think
Yep.
as soon as you see that, have your eyes open to that, then it's a chance to really embrace it and take it as a positive growth outlook. And
Yep.
I think when you've got alignment in your company from that point on, it sort of starts making sense to look at it as early on in the process as you can. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
No, it does absolutely. And it's a lot of this. I guess for the wider audience. I mean, recycling and manufacturing and the rotational molding industry. Is there anything that you guys do when it comes down to the designing of the product, with your products? Is there anything that you do in this space that you have to consider um, that's going to help with recyclability?
Um, Well, I think we've got a prime opportunity. It's pretty fortunate that we're in rotomolding with a low density polyethylene, right? So linear low density polyethylene, I think that's the general practice for the industry. It's a long polymer that's really conducive to many iterations of recycling. So that take a long polymer and it can be broken down over many stages and
Yep.
retain its pliability and all the benefits that we use the material to start with also dovetail nicely, very nicely into a recycling story at the end of life. So
Yep.
sort of by default, I think we've all got an opportunity here in the industry
Yep.
to just embrace that from
Yep.
a material perspective. Unlike, let's say, high density polyethylene and the
Right.
injection molded processes, that's a
Yes.
lot shorter polymer. And as I understand it, I'm only very much a layman and just what I've picked up along the way.
Yep.
But just an easy material to recycle with. So I
Yep.
think that's definitely an advantage.
Yeah.
Then
Sure.
I think the other thing, Jim, is being in manufacturing, we get very keen to protect the product quality and integrity of our products, and rightly
Hmm.
so. And it can become all absorbing at times.
Yes.
And so I think there can be a little bit of reticence to go into, let's say, using a recycled material ourselves or something, because we're worried about impairing the integrity of the product and how's that going to perform. And these are all valid questions that we have to absolutely address for our customers
Mm.
and shareholders alike. But when we look at the life cycle of a product, it's not just about end of life. It's also about that whole use of the product and whether it can be, repaired and reused and then
Yep.
recycled.
Yep.
And I think it actually gives us an opportunity to make our product stronger and better,
Yeah.
because where there might have previously been sort of competitive forces that drive down, let's say, the shot weight of a product, whatever it is,
Yep.
and ending up in a product that's maybe has a shorter use
Mm.
of life, we've
Yep.
actually now got the um, drive to go, all right, let's put a bit more in to start with,
Yep.
10-15% more in, and people are willing to partner with that story because the product then lasts longer. And so it can very much be a win-win-win. It doesn't
Yep.
necessarily need to be looked at from a negative perspective in any way, shape,
Yep.
or form. Does that make
Totally.
sense?
No, it does totally, and I'd like to touch on that just briefly in my second to last question. But prior to moving on to that, I did want to ask also around not just the material type. Is there anything else that you guys, at PLASTAX consider when it comes to, just generally minimizing waste in the manufacturing process? Is there any other measures that you've implemented, that's helped out in that space?
Well, absolutely. I mean, and that probably comes back to your own product IPs, but
Mm.
essentially, the less you put in, just almost flip side of what I just said, the less you put into a product, the cheaper it is, right? And so
Hmm.
you've got to be
Yep.
able to, and that's the market wants that, and so you've got to be
Yep.
able to find a way in your design to put the plastic where you need it and not where you don't,
Yep.
and
Yep.
that's what will obviously give you a very good product that the market
Yep.
wants, and then
Yep.
at the same time protecting yourself against competitive forces that
Yep.
might want to drive a shot weight to a point where it doesn't have that long
Yeah.
life cycle use. So very much a
Yeah.
balance, and
Yep.
there's no really silver bullet to that. But
Yep.
if you've got people around the boardroom table that are aligned and keen to have the conversation from a really positive
Mm.
perspective, then you
Mm.
can definitely get the right outcomes.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's
No,
a bit
that's
generic. It's a bit generic, but it's just a matter of sort of approaching it, holistically or
yeah.
spherically. Yeah.
No, absolutely. So we did touch on the dirty plastic word, and we run into it as a supplier into the industry. You obviously as a manufacturer in the industry. As how do you guys see to change that perception around the dirty plastic word, and I guess promote positive recycling narratives?
Sure. So when you say dirty plastic, do you mean like contaminated at end of life, or sorry,
We,
what
we're
just?
talk we're talking about. I guess there's a massive drive in the world about single-use plastics,
Yeah.
and for those of us that are still struggling to understand, where we fit in that
Yes.
space, how do,
Yeah.
how do we change that perception for the rotomolding industry?
Yeah. Cool. So firstly, you've got to be in the industry to be able to innovate in it. I think
Hmm.
that comes nice and clear. So I think um, you, there's a lot of plastics being used in the world. Some of them come from the rotomolding industry. Most of them probably don't. All the
Mm.
single use stuff. But you really have to be in the industry to be able to innovate away from that. And what comes clear is that no one can do it by themselves. You need a network of people around you. You need your suppliers. You need your customers. Um, and when you start being open to conversation, what you'll find is that your customers aren't there with a big stick ready to bash you around the head on this conversation, and neither are your suppliers, and neither are the guys
Yeah.
down the road. They're actually there in the same boat and wanting to do well. So I
Mm.
think um, if you can embrace it, the fact that, hey, we've got the opportunity to innovate from where we are and we can
Mm.
actually make a meaningful difference, I think that helps. Does
Yeah.
does
Yep.
does that
No,
does that help, Jim? Yeah.
no, that's good. That's good. So, around that, what advice would you give to, I guess, other businesses, other role models that are looking to improve their recycling practices,
Yeah.
and embrace that environmental stewardship? What sort of advice would you put out there to um to other role models?
Yeah. I'll just come back to that one, Jim. I was just thinking
Yep.
one other point you made, which was a good one, is how do I fit into this? You're saying people that might not quite know how they fit into it.
Mhm.
From what I've picked up, real again layman's terms here, but the when it comes to the environment and approaching product stewardship, um, it would seem to me there's three sort of simple ways to approach it. So what comes out of the ground,
Mm.
so that's like your natural resources.
Yes.
What goes into the ground, so the concerns there is your contamination or your pollution,
Mhm.
and then through that whole cycle of out of the ground and into the ground, what goes up into the air? What's the carbon footprint of that? And so, look, I'm sure that's oversimplified, but just helps to know what am I working on here? This next project, whatever it is, this next strategy, this next idea that I want to implement, does it fit into sort of category one, where I'm sort of maybe working with my supply chain to reduce what's coming out of the ground, or is it
Yep.
part two about product stewardship? This is very much the conversation that we're landing
Mm.
into. Part two, stop things going into the ground,
Mm.
creating a nice circular economy inside of that. Or
Mm.
part three, what are the emissions that are coming out of it? What's the footprint and what can be done there? And I think
Mm.
um, if you just try and clarify it a little bit and just untangle it so that there's not,
Yeah.
because it can be, there's a lot of press, there's a lot of stuff to read, there's a lot of people
Mm.
with opinions, and
Yep.
most of them are good, but it's just a matter of
Mm.
trying to sort of silo them a little bit. Well, for someone like me, I
Mm.
just have to get things into boxes a bit, and then
Yep.
once you've got that, you can sort of lean into it. So if you then go, all right, let's take number two in my little simplified model there of keeping things out of the ground, not putting
Mm.
stuff back in, not contaminating. That's product stewardship. That's ensuring that we've got a good end of life cycle. Um, well, that's where we need to start looking at what's going to happen at the end of the product. And I think for us, where we found the best place to start was our own post-industrial recycling, the stuff that we're creating every day. Every time we make a product, there's some
Yep.
level of yield, right? That's that's manufacturing in any way, shape, or form. Try and minimize it, but there's going to be something. So then that's your opportunity to start working, because it's a very controlled environment. That's you've got control over that. You can see what's coming out. You can keep it clean,
Mm.
and it still
Yep.
takes disciplines. Like
Yeah.
even inside the factory of people that are keen to do it well, um, it just takes a while to get the behaviors cemented in,
Sure.
and then once you've done that, I think if you start in that space, then you can start looking at going, all right, we can do it with our own waste. How do we
Yep.
do it now with the products that we're creating, and start working on that next step. And then probably thirdly, it's probably then it comes, all right, now when we design our next product, how do
Mm.
we ensure we're minimizing our waste and what's its end of life cycle? Because you'll find some challenges in your products that you've got out there. For example, composite products are more challenging if you've got
Yep.
pieces of steel or aluminium or inserts, or any sort of composite materials inside your product makes it more challenging at end of life. And so just getting into it, finding out what those challenges are, that's often, it's going to be a little bit different for everyone. But yeah, I think that's how we've done it anyway.
Nice. No, good
Yeah.
stuff. Such cool story. And yeah, as you say, simple wins. We tend to overcomplicate things, so heading for those simple wins. But such a cool story, and we know that behind every great story, there's a great brand, and it probably brings me on to my last point, which I tend to be a
Yeah.
little, I don't know what you call it, a little over passionate about branding because it's what we are all about. But
Would you say over passionate
yeah, is there such a thing?
or obsessed or what sort of, there's,
Obsessed is probably a better word. Yeah,
okay, yeah, good.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess when considering all this, this environmental stewardship program, I guess how important is branding when we come to undertaking a project like this? I mean, as
Well,
I might say, as epic as this.
yeah, that's cool. And so for me, brand is trust.
Hmm.
In the big picture, big umbrella, brand is
Mm,
trust. And there's nothing like the trust that can be built with somebody partnering with your company, knowing that they can trust you to do good. And whether that's going to be delivering it on time to start with, making sure it's a really good product to start with, making sure the
mhm,
price is right to start with, that's all good stuff.
mhm,
Then you've got the in through the life cycle. How are you going to be there to
yep,
assist? Are you going to be partnering with them to repair the product when it's needed? Can
mhm,
you offer advice on how to give it a bit of a refurb, a bit of a
yep,
facelift for its next cycle of deployment, depending on the product? And
mhm,
then at the end of that, are you there to assist them in um, making sure that product has a great end of life and maybe even another iteration? That's the next stage that we're working on is making sure that the product can continue maybe within your own product range or
mm,
then eventually go onto somebody else's product range. So it might go to a different value chain. Like there's some
mm,
great innovations out there, and you don't necessarily have to carry all that weight yourself.
mm,
Customers really value networking, and if you can point them in the right direction on certain areas, then that's valuable too. And so
absolutely.
um, yeah, for me, it's all about that brand. Like every interaction, what a great opportunity, Jim, to go to a customer and go another chance to go back to them and repair their product or assist them in that journey. And instead of just being upfront little transactional stuff where you
Yep.
selling them stuff and moving on, you've got a chance to really embed yourself with a customer on their journey.
Mm,
And
mm,
yeah, I mean,
yep.
I'm not a marketing specialist, but is that brand?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. And on brand, my closing question, I can't help to ask it, but how do you see branding of your products, and where do you use it and how?
So branding of the product. So you're thinking like the look of the product, is that?
Yeah, yeah. No, what can you do that's going to make that stand apart? Because it's just, going back to your story again,
Yeah.
behind every brand is a massively great story. How do
Yeah.
we bring that to life, and how's that portrayed in your products?
Yeah, cool. So I would approach this from two angles: point of sale and then in
Hmm.
use.
Right.
So
Yep.
point of sale, that's ensuring that you're doing everything for and with your customer to ensure that some things you'll be better at than them because you'll be the specialist.
Hmm.
Some things they'll be better at than you because they, for whatever reason, they'll have a set of skill sets that they might be better at delivering it on, or another third party supplier. And so whether that's like the graphics that you guys drive, Jim, and supply. Whether that's inside the product or whether that's on the outside of the product, that's big. I'd say that's point of sale, and
Hmm.
that's really important because when that
Yep.
product goes to site, on its first deployment, um, that's the customer's their initial feeling as to they've committed to an investment and then they get that product, whether it's a
Mm.
piece of agricultural equipment or a tank or a
Sure.
rubbish bin, depending
Sure.
whatever it is. It's that
Yep.
same. And then the next bit I would say for branding is that over the life. So you've got point of
Yep.
sale, and you can probably have a lot of people competing for a good point of sale.
Sure.
But
Yep.
what about how's the product going to perform through its life? People are interacting with that product every day. They're seeing it or using it, or and can it stand to the test, and does it do what you promised it was going to do? That's how I see the brand
Yep.
just from a product perspective.
Awesome. Well, Freddie, it's been absolutely fantastic to get that story. I can only thank you very much. That's Freddie Farquhar of PLASTAX here in New Zealand. Super passionate guy about product recycling and stewardship. Any closing words? I can only thank you very much, Freddie, for your time. It's been
No,
awesome.
yeah, no, that's cool, Jim. No, I just implore people to make a start. You just got to get into it and network with your suppliers. That's where we've found really good value in that. I'd be remiss of me not to give a shout out to Sally from VPLAS, and all the work she's done
Yep,
in assisting us on that journey. It's been, that's been a big part of it as well. So yeah,
absolutely. Good stuff.
good, Jim.
Right. Thank you, Freddie.
All right,
Appreciate your
take care.
time. It's been
Cheers.
great. You too. Bye.